Hi and welcome to another MoTeC webinar. My name's Pete Swinney and today's subject is how to get injector calibrations in and out of a M1 ECU. So you've got to the point where you're changing injectors. Maybe you're just setting a file up for the first time and you've got a known good start file, or maybe you are have already done a tune-up on a standard engine with standard injectors and you're going to put a larger set of injectors in. Provided your existing setup has been correct, your engine displacement's correct, and all the original injectors have the correct information in for the file you've got, then by importing the matching data for the injectors that you are fitting will give you a result that should mean that you shouldn't have to tune virtually any part of the map to get it right. So in other words, if you get this process right, then there'll be very little to do with the retune after the new injectors have been fitted. Right, so how do you do it? There's quite a bit of information that the ECU needs to know about. It needs the injector linearization tables to be entered. So this is like, in M800 terms, the battery compensation tables. There's a slide coming up that shows you a little bit more about that. The reference flow and reference pressure. Now this is briefly the maximum flow of the injector and the pressure at which it was flowed at. The injector type, and so that you need to enter the ECU pin drive parameters for that. So whether it's peak and hold, or what those parameters are for the peak current and the hold current appropriate to that injector. So the electrical characteristics, you could say. And the injector's location, so whether it's before or after the throttle body. That will affect, if the injector sees inlet manifold pressure, then that affects the differential fuel pressure. That's the fuel pressure across the injector, and therefore the amount of fuel the injector will flow will be different for a given pulse width if it's before or after the butterfly. So we need to tell the ECU that. Alright, so here's a bit of a graph to help you understand what each of those parameters refer to. So this is an example for a single pressure and a single voltage. So for 300 kPa and 14 volts, this is a flow representation of the injector over time. So at the lower opening times of almost all injectors, right down the bottom, somewhere around the 1 to 2 millisecond mark, most injectors will actually be non-linear. Alright, so they actually get to a point where there's some times where you open them for a longer period of time and they actually flow the same or less. And you can see, if you look at this particular part of the slope on this graph here, that this injector from these particular times here actually flows slightly less fuel. Alright, so we can actually graph that. It's a repeatable behavior. And we do that for all the practical voltages that you might use in motorsport and all the practical fuel pressures. And this ends up with a whole lot of tables with a whole lot of numbers in them. And then what happens is once that information starts to become linear, all these tables have flow versus time information in them. And then once we see that the flow rate becomes linear for every extra amount of time that we open the injector for, we actually stop filling out the linearization tables. So from that point there, the ECU, to calculate how much time to open the injector for a given flow, simply works from the end of the table out to the reference flow point up here. So if it's a 1000 cc injector and it flows 1000 cc's at 300 kPa, then that's what the information you put here. So if the ECU calculates that it needs 500 cc's worth of fuel, which is going to be about here, it can look up this graph and plot what it's going to have to open in time, how long the injector has to be open for to give exactly 500 cc's worth of fuel. Alright, so if it's in a part of the injector flow where it's linear, then it'll use this straight line. So you can see that this point up here, this reference flow, is really important to make sure that's entered accurately. Otherwise the ECU is going to get it wrong. Now when you're tuning, that doesn't matter. You'll just see the engine go rich or lean and you'll just change the number in your fuel efficiency map. But what's nice is if you get all this right and then you change injectors and you put all the correct information for those new injectors in, then the ECU is giving you the exact fuel that it thinks it's giving you, and everything just works well, and all your air-fuel ratios just stay the same. Alright, so there's a couple of different methods for getting this information into the ECU. Alright, so originally all we had initially was using a merging data method. So what that meant was you had to have an existing file, if you like, an existing package with the injector calibrations already in it. I mean, you could enter them one at a time, but that was one data point at a time. That's an enormous job. So we'll cover that method because it's good for you to have a look at how to merge data, and sometimes it can be a little bit quicker to do it that way. So effectively you end up with a screen here that has your original file on the left, and you open up another file with all the injector information already in it that you know is right. So maybe MoTeC supply you a file that we say has got 1000cc injector cals, because that's what you want to put in. And you open that file as a compare package, just like overlaying or opening a compare file in I2. And then you drag over by dragging and dropping or double clicking all the relevant tables and parameters that you want. And this is the kind of thing you do with merging all sorts of data. You could merge in manifold pressure calibrations and all sorts of things using this method. So it's quite a good thing to learn and understand about. Alright, and the second method is to actually import a dedicated injector calibration file directly. And so that's quite a lot simpler, and provided you have a file, a dedicated file that has the injector calibration information in it that you want, you can simply go to File and import the configuration itself. Right, but to show you live, we'll go to the M1 Tune software, and I'll show you both methods. Alright, so here's M1 Tune open, and there's no package open at the moment. So I'm going to File, I'm going to open a package here, and I've got one here already sorted, and it says small injectors. Alright, doesn't matter what it's called. So here's our file or our package, and using our first method, which was merging data, we'll go Tools. Missed a step, haven't I? I need to open a second file. File, Add Compare Package. Alright, so we're looking for a package that's already got the right injectors in it. So here's one, actually here's one from a Sea-Doo. It says it's got 1000cc injectors in it. I can just open this up, double click, and in this mode now it just shows you the differences between things that are from one file to the other. So we now go down to Tools, Migrate Data, and now here's the two lists of data, or of all the properties from inside each package. So this is all the tables, parameters, everything relating to making that engine go. So on the left here we've got our package called Small Injectors, and on the right here we've got another one. It's an RXP jet ski, and it says it's got 1000cc injectors in it. Now I'll pull the scroll bar down so you can see all the information that's in here. There's lots and lots of information. Now everything that's red is different, and everything that's white is the same. Alright, so to give you an example, the fuel overall trim here, they're both 0, so they're white. Because this is two entirely different packages, two different engines entirely, that's why there's lots of red. Alright, so we're only really interested in the injector information. So let's go INJE for injector. Now that has automatically filtered everything out. I'll spell the whole word. Everything out that hasn't got the word injector in it. So now what I'm after is the relevant information to do with these 1000cc injectors. Now I can have a quick look and just make sure that we've do a bit of a sanity check, if you like, and look and make sure that this file is the one that I'm after, and it's got 1000cc injectors in it. So I'm clicking down here at the reference flow. It's in cc's per minute, and I can see that it's 1151 at a reference pressure of 4 bar, and I happen to know that that is a 1000cc injector. Okay, so this is the file that I'm after. It's got the 1000cc injector information in it. Now I will have to do is either double click or drag and drop all the information over. This has got slightly, they're different packages. They've got a different firmware in them, so some of the things are not the same as far as they're not called exactly the same thing, and that's why they're not lined up against each other. So the type is still here, pin drive. This one's saturated. The type is, it's called type in this package over here, which is a release package. So that's gone over to saturated after the throttle. That's correct. That there's no parameter for that in this particular file. Now, linearization tables. Here is the linearization tables for cylinder 1 injector. So every cylinder that you have in your particular package, so if it's an 8-cylinder, it'll have eight linearization tables. So each of them has its own linearization table. As another sanity check to make sure you're not copying same things in and make sure they are in fact different, we can click down here. Rather than look at the information for each of these parameters, you can actually look at the live data or the raw data for the actual parameter or the table that we've highlighted on. So on the left, this is the table. Here's the different voltages for this table, and you can see if we go back to 8 volts here, it's actually hasn't even got an 8-volt sight on it, this table. Alright, they're definitely different. These are the 1000 cc's on the right hand side, and they're a different injector, the stock injectors for this engine on the left. So how do we bring them over? We can just drag and drop it. See how it's gone green? That means you've moved it and it's been successful. The reference flow on this particular injector was near enough to 700 cc's at 300 kPa. On this side it was 1151 cc's at 400 kPa. So I can double click, same result. Note when you double click, it's just gone straight over and they're white. When you physically drag and drop it, because you can drag over and not necessarily put that in the same location, it lets you know that the tables have been moved successfully, and that's why it's gone green. Now the reason I'm showing you that is because we could double click these over. It's already gone over, that's why it's white. We get to injector 3, double click all the injector stuff over, but how do we get into injector 4 here? We can simply drag that whole injector group over and drop it on there. Alright, so all we really need is a 1-cylinder engine with 1000 cc injector cowls, and we're done. Now actually is another feature I can show you. I can't kind of pull it over or drag it over because it's not in the same line. Now you can unlock that there, which means we can now move these individually. Okay, so they're not locked together anymore, so I can just leave that in cylinder number 3 injector information there. Alright, so not only by me grabbing the injector parameter there, or that injector group if you like, I've pulled the linearization table, the minimum flow, the reference flow, and the reference pressure all in one hit over there. Alright, so it's not green, and that's because we double clicked that one over. So the fact is it's white and it's not red. Here we go, here's one that's a problem. Reference flow here is wrong, so I'll need to pull that over. And that particular case was when we just double clicked and brought the linearization table only over. A little bit confusing, I can understand that, but everything's laid out for you to be able to see it. Alright, so that's all the injector information gone across. You can now close that, and we're going to File, Save As, and we'll now put 1000 cc injectors here. Alright, so we've got a new name, whatever you want. Alright, so that's that method. Now, that method's used, or the migrating data method is handy to bring over all sorts of things. I might decide that that same file has a 3-bar map sensor that I want to use out of it because the standard map sensor is not turboed. I want to put a 3-bar map sensor, so I can use that migration method to bring that in. I can steal any calibrations or setup parameters out of any file I like and just double click them or pull them over manually. Alright, so the second method you can do is by just importing an Injector calibration setup. So if we go File, Import Configuration. Alright, now I have a list of Injector calibrations here, or Injector configuration files, and we'll weed through them here and go to Injector Dynamics, or any of these other ones here you might want to pick. Here's Siemens Deckers. Now they have different, basically different pressures against them, but only difference between each of these files is the reference pressure. Alright, so the reference flow goes up, obviously at the higher pressure, and if you're running your engine at 500 kPa, then it's better to use the 500 kPa injector cals with or 500 kPa injector reference flow. So it's just a matter of double clicking that file and you'll get some information, some warnings if there's any. And what this is saying, all of these injector calibration files or configuration files have all the information for up to 12 injectors, just in case you're using an M150. So if it's an M150, you're going to need up to 12 injector calibrations. So what's happened is we've double clicked on that file, it's gone to import it into this file, but this file, if you have a look up here, is for an M130, or this package. So this M130 doesn't have injector drives for cylinders 9, 10, 11 and 12. So this information here is telling you that it couldn't migrate that data in or merge that data in, and it's warning you that that happens. So all of these I fully expect, because this particular ECU package, or this package, doesn't have these injector drives in it, so of course it didn't work. Alright, so that's normal. And now if we actually look inside this file, we can go down to initial setup, injectors. Here we can see we've still got that compare file open, so let's close that file, close compare package, and now you can see we've got some big injectors in here. They flow 3,200, so 3.2 litres at 500 kPa at 5 bar of fuel pressure. So these are definitely the ones we're after. Alright, and you can go through and check all the different setup parameters. If you're online, you can see all the live millisecond openings for the particular place you're at. If the engine's off, it'll still have actual opening times, and make sure all these opening times are the same. All these linearization tables that are here should all result in having the same opening time at any given point, unless you've actually manually gone to an individual cylinder table trim and changed it. Then all your injectors should be opening at the same have the same opening time. Alright, so that's seems relatively simple. It is relatively simple to bring in all the injector calibration. So if you can get an injector configuration file from your local MoTeC dealer or distributor, then that's certainly the easiest method to get that in. Now, maybe you want to send someone the injector calibration information that you've got on your engine, and the merging of data seems a little bit complicated, something you don't want to attempt at this point. What you can actually do is export your existing calibration information. So we can go File, Export Configuration. Now this feature actually allows you to export anything. You can export the entire file, obviously, or you can export parts of it. So in this particular case, we're going to export selected items, so we can choose INJ Injector. So everything to do with injector is now filtered into this box on the left, and we can go through and check that all the information we want is contained. So we can actually untick any of these if we want. So this is all the linearization tables and all the reference flows and pressures for each cylinder. And obviously if you've got 8 injectors that are all the same, then these are all going to be the same numbers. Alright, and then there's the general injector information, the peak current, the hold current, peak time, the type, and the location. So all of these are here in the boxes are ticked. I might choose, don't have to send the location of the injector, so whether it's before or after the throttle body. I might choose not to send just the injector setup information because I'm not sure that it's right. Not sure what the example will be in your case, but generally you would expect that you would leave everything ticked. Alright, so this is all the information relating to this set of physical injectors in your engine, and this is all the setup parameters relating to them in this package. So we can just push export, and we can give it a name. So Pete's webinar injectors. You can have your own. You've modified some of your own, doesn't really matter. If you want to then have a file that you can share with other people and they can easily bring that in, obviously it's nice and easy just to import, then that we've now got those. Alright, so the data was successfully exported and it's now sitting in my Injector Calibrations folder. Alright, so that's it for now. Thanks for tuning in. Plenty more subjects coming up and other things covered in the M1 webinar section on our website, and we'll keep updating them when we can. Catch you next time.